Hi, welcome back to the In Between in this special series that I'm calling Recognizing Yourself in the In Between. We've walked the terrain of change, we've survived, and now, with things calmer and the chaos resolved, we are willing to go back and revisit what just happened so that we can see what else is there for us that we couldn't see the first time through. We have greater awareness, we have the time, and we have a heightened sense of curiosity to learn more about the wisdom and the insight that is nestled in the terrain of change. One of the things I've realized about the helpers is why it is that we don't often see them the first time around. And that's because we're in pain. We are experiencing chaos, confusion, uncertainty. We're trying to control things because everything has been turned upside down. We're dealing with some version of death, grief, loss. We are going through the dark night of the soul. And though there may be some obvious helpers, and I hope there are for you, friends, family, community, ritual, nature, exercise, I'm talking about the helpers that aren't always so obvious, that require not just our acknowledgement, but our awareness and our willingness to call on them when we find ourselves once again stepping onto the in between. And a lot of times, the helpers don't show up exactly as we believe that they will. Sometimes a helper is discomfort because it's prompting us, it's forcing us to either get out of our comfort zone or to look at something that's happening from a different perspective. Sometimes a helper is divine timing or that inner knower that brings a flash of insight to us so that suddenly clarity arrives. What this area of change allows us to do is to begin the process of developing a relationship with one of the helpers that I call the inner knower. As I always like to remind myself, something is beating my heart while I sleep. While I'm in dreamland, something is handling all the functions of my body. I'm not involved in that at all. That is an intelligence that knows. And that intelligence is what I call the inner knower. Maybe you call it God, higher power, the universe, whatever your word is, whatever your language is. Now we have the opportunity to deepen our relationship with the one within that knows. One of the most comforting things I tell myself when I'm going through change, uncertainty, chaos, confusion, when I feel overwhelmed, I say this to myself out loud. I say, Camille, the good news is there is an intelligence that has gone out ahead before you, knows the best path for you, and has now come back and is showing you the way. All you have to do is pay attention and to have faith and to trust its guidance when it appears. That's the kind of language that we start to move into, that we start to develop and we start to use when we are able to revisit the terrain of change and when we are able to recognize ourselves when we are going through change and the feelings that we feel while we're going through it. The helpers help us remember that there is guidance that we can't see, but we feel, that we have flashes of insight, or suddenly the phone rings and there's that support we needed, or we stumble upon a book or an article that is talking about the very thing that we're going through. The helpers weave their way into the other two categories of the in between, the invitation and the unseen forces. And so I wanted to just spend these minutes with you here reminding us that the helpers ask us at some point to participate actively in relationship with them. They invite us to be more mindful of their presence the second time around. The helpers help us remember that so much of the support and guidance that ultimately is the most helpful comes from our own heart, comes from that divine mind that uses our own mind as a seat of awareness, insight, and revelation. That when we take the time to develop a relationship with what we cannot see, when we communicate with it, when we ask it questions or give it commands like, show me the way. It's a very powerful experience. Consider it the laboratory when you step into that kind of relationship with what you can't see. You ask it, show me the way. I had a situation the other day. I had to do a celebration of life for my beloved friend who died, my best friend's husband. I couldn't get there. I had so much personal emotion. As the MC, you got to find your way to what you're going to be talking about. I couldn't. The night before the event, I was still stuck in my own sorrow. And so what did I do? I called upon my helpers and I said, look, I'm going to bed. I can't do this on my own, but when I wake up tomorrow, please organize this on my behalf. Bring it to me tomorrow in a way that makes sense. And guess what? That's exactly what I experienced. I woke up, I did my morning practices, I did my meditation, I did my spiritual prayer work, and sure enough, it arrived in all its fullness, in order, in a way that was authentic and meaningful to me. The helpers aren't here to take away the journey. Oftentimes, they're not necessarily even here to remove the pain, but they are here to help us move through it with a greater sense of compassion and respect, with some tips and strategies that can help, and with this incredible, beautiful reminder that we truly are never alone. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't had the chance to go back and watch all the videos associated with the helpers, I encourage you to do so. They're so beautiful. There's so much wisdom in the helpers. And it's just such a wonderful relief to know that though you're going through change, uncertainty, and rebirth, that you are definitely not going through it all by yourself. Your helpers are there, right there alongside you. Look for them, talk to them, invite them in, and let them help you walk the in-between.